I'm making a video game, except I'm not, I'm just designing it, which is the easy part. But how do you design a video game? Well, in a very literal sense, let's talk game design. As you may know, SMASH, which is short for the School of Magic and Academic Study of Hocus, which used to be Hocus Pocus but there were budget cuts to government funding for educational institutions and part of the sign fell off, is a shameless rip-off homage to SMASH TV, a top-down twin-stick arcade shooter released in the far-off aeon of 1990, which, it causes me physical pain to tell you, is currently 32 years ago. Now what I don't want you to do is get the wrong idea. I'm not inspired by SMASH TV because it was perfect. It was, in fact, far from perfect. It was, as I mentioned, an arcade game. Some of the younger members of our audience might have heard crumpled old granddads like me telling you that arcade games had a certain sense of design purity, that they came from a simpler and more efficient age, and that the sensibilities of what they taught us about good game design have since been lost to the annals of history and youthful ignorance. That is all true, but it's not all of the truth. The rest of the truth is that many arcade games, even the good ones, featured nefarious bullshit, unfair game design underneath them, because they were designed consciously by choice to make you spend money. Every time you wanted a life, or a try, or a man, or a go, or whatever you called it, you put money in. And what that means is that terribly capitalistic game designers were incentivized to make their games brutally hard and often unfairly cheap. I bring that up because SMASH TV was one of the worst offenders. It was relentless in its pursuit of just miserable amounts of enemies that you and your rapidly dwindling pocket change had absolutely no chance of overcoming at all. Past a certain point, and I say this with love, it stopped being designed at all and was instead just turned up. So if I'm not inspired by the perfection it doesn't have, then what is it about SMASH TV that I want to carry over to a new audience and force upon a new generation? Simple. The part of SMASH TV that I like, that is a very universal positive from arcade games in general, is the implementation of what's known as the primary gameplay loop. In simple terms, the primary gameplay loop is the loop of your gameplay, primarily. No, it's what you do. It's the thing that you do for most of the time. How you handle this will determine the baseline quality of all of your game's design. The simplest example is something like Breakout. It's a game where you bounce a ball into some bricks with a paddle, and it's basically Pong but for people without any friends. You catch the ball, it bounces the ball upwards, it hits a brick, it bounces back, and you repeat. If you miss, you lose a life, and you repeat. If you lose all your lives, it's game over, you start from the beginning, and you repeat. Many of you watching might be thinking, Zane, you're meant to be a golden god of game design, and you're explaining something to me that I knew when I was 3 years old. Everybody knows this is useless. First of all, no they don't. If they did, you wouldn't get games that bury their genuinely very impressive mechanical gameplay loops under layer after layer of sludgy, tedious, ham-fisted storytelling as if the cinematic presentation was the reason to buy it, for example. Secondly, this is just an introduction. You might have seen other videos, you might have read books or followed an online course that told you about the primary gameplay loop and then just stopped, as if that was all you needed to know was that it existed. That's a bit like telling you that a car goes forward because it has wheels. It's technically correct, but it's sort of obvious and not very useful if you want to design one. So let's look at what makes a good gameplay loop and how we're going to be hopefully working that into SMASH. And to do that, we're going to go back to Breakout, except we won't be talking about this limited primitive example that is, believe it or not, older than I am. We're going to be talking about this. This is Shatter. It came out in 2009 and it's basically Breakout but intelligently enhanced and evolved in ways that are both so simple and also so incredibly genius. You still bounce the ball. You move the paddle, it hits the ball goes off, hits some bricks, you hit the ball again. But here, outside of the visual upgrades, you've also had some additions to the gameplay that entirely serve that primary gameplay loop. There's the usual upgrades like a laser and an unbreakable ball, but there's also a million other subtle alterations. Things like being able to pull or push the ball around with air vents that come out of your paddle, or how some of the blocks fall towards you with proper physics, or being able to send out however many balls you want based on how many lives you have left, or the numerous different types of blocks that appear with their own unique twists and gimmicks. This is the part of the video where I ramble ever so slowly to try and think of an excuse to put more footage from Shatter in, because Shatter is a perfect case study in accentuating and extending a game's design, and I wish more people had played it. This game also has boss battles, and those boss battles centre around your ability to manoeuvre your ball to hit things, like you do with the bricks, which is another clever spin on that primary loop. The loop itself works in Shatter like it did in Breakout by constantly updating the player's expectations and demands. It gives you a toolbox with a few things that you can do that are very simple and satisfying to understand. You move up and down, or left to right, or around in a semicircle, and you hit a ball with a paddle. It's immediate and satisfying, which are good traits to have in your basic gameplay. Now here is your teachable moment. To design a good primary gameplay loop, you need to run every single decision through it and see if it fits. I'll give you another slightly controversial example, this time of some decisions that don't positively influence the primary gameplay loop and how that basically ruins everything. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, the primary loop of a 2D Sonic game is you move towards the end of the level, jumping over and dealing with obstacles, and your ability to do that well leads to an increase in your speed and momentum. That's what we know of Sonic, that's what Sonic was, it's all over the branding. But this version of Sonic has Knuckles in it. Little side note, this is taken from that new Sonic Origins collection because I like to use the optimum looking version of games when I take footage from them. But Knuckles has actually been playable in Sonic 1 in widescreen since the Android version came out in 2013, and to be perfectly honest, I'd probably recommend you go play that instead. Anyway, now you have different tools to accomplish the same thing. Start from the beginning, go towards the end, deal with the obstacles. It still works because everything Knuckles can do positively affects your ability to complete that loop. Now, this is Sonic Adventure. If ever you hear anyone say Sonic the Hedgehog had a rough transition into 3D, you have my permission to slap them around the back of the head, because Sonic himself is absolutely fine. You go from the start of the level to the end, making the most of your momentum-based mechanics, and that's it, that's the loop. It's basically Sonic. There is more to unpack there, but we're getting a little bit off topic, so we'll save that for my inevitable 9-hour epic video essay on the virtues of the 3D Sonic series. Anyway, Sonic in Sonic Adventure is not the problem. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Big the Cat. What in the hell was this about? You do some fishing, you bumble about, at some point there's a frog. What has this got to do with anything? It's nonsense, I hate it, it's one of the worst things the Sonic series has ever done, and yes, I'm including Sonic 06. The reason I find it so offensive is that it's got absolutely nothing to do with being Sonic in 3D, which is what people at the time, and probably people still today, want from a 3D Sonic game. They want the feeling of being Sonic but in the third dimension, not whatever this is. So the key to designing a compelling, satisfying and just plain good primary gameplay loop is to look at what your game is meant to be about, and then running every major creative decision through that intention, so that everything you do is at least considered to be part of what it is you want your game to be. And that brings us neatly on to Smash is a top-down arcade arena twin-stick shooter with roguelite elements. I know there's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's about time that we started to. The top-down arcade arena twin-stick shooter bits all come from Smash TV, and they're influenced by the primary loop of Smash TV that I'm so inspired by. There is something immensely satisfying about the way Smash TV throws you into the game, hurls wave of enemies at your dumb face, and then gives you a set number of tools and abilities to cope with those enemies, then asks you to do it all over again. That, in a nutshell, is what Smash is all about, and this, in a nutshell, is me. Oh no, I'm in a nutshell. How did I get into this nutshell? This shell is so huge, what kind of nut has a shell? I want it to play out with the same immediate and fast-paced urgency that Smash TV had, kept in a uniquely controlled box-like layout so that you always have a clear vision of where you can go, where the enemies are coming from, and what options you've got from moment to moment. Because the challenge in this kind of game comes from your ability to react to the situation, and to do that you require a wealth of visual information at all times. So that's all nice and simple, right? You understand Smash TV and the twin-stick shooter genre in general, you're a smart cookie who is deeply attractive and a joy to be around. Please like and subscribe. But what about the bits I missed out? What about the part of Smash TV that I don't like, that I mentioned earlier, is that it's an arcade game. It ramps up with reckless abandon so that you push coin after coin into what is probably a gummed up plastic slot until you reach the end. You can win by virtue of just spending more money, which is nefarious and a little bit skeevy. It comes from a time period where the most important thing for you to achieve was a high score at the end. But it also lets you just keep adding on to that score for as long as you can provide cash, which in a very literal sense makes Smash TV, like a lot of arcade games, very pay to win. It also has almost no variety. Every level plays out exactly the same with the same enemy spawns, hazards and layouts every single time. This is in some respects a positive for an arcade game because you can end up feeling like you could get just a little bit further this time if you had one more try, because you've learned the previous layouts and maybe this time and in goes the money and now you're poor. But for a home game, something you buy on Steam and play for fun every so often, it's not quite the same thing. Yes, it's nice to master a layout and get good at it, beat the thing and off we go, but that's a finite amount of joy and accomplishment. And we're in 2022 now, which is an age of random generation. Let's look at something like Binding of Isaac, a top-down twin-stick etc with an obscene level of randomization and variety, where the thousands of hours that people plunge into Ed McMillan's postulating passion project comes from discovery, experimentation and increasing your personal skill level across a broad range of unique runs and experiences. Now, I do have to temper your expectations from the outset. Smash is not going to be anywhere near as randomized as Isaac. I have neither the time nor the brain power to come up with 40 billion different items, and to be honest, as development has progressed on Isaac, because of the wealth and breadth of things it has in it, sometimes these days it starts to feel a little bit bloated and samey, like certain items or enemies or whatever are carbon copies of previous ones with a bit of a tweak. But you know, it still works, and it's however many years old now, so that's understandable and fine. Instead, what Smash is going to have is something I'm calling Now, like I said, the basic loop of Smash is you're in a room killing stuff. The stuff dies, you do it again. That's nice and simple, you're all on board, you understand what we're doing. Where we're adding the variety and a little bit of that roguelike randomness is in things that modify your experience. The first room of every level is nice and simple and basic, nothing weird happens, you kill enemies, they die, job done. Once that's done, you're presented with some choices. The first choice is what reward you'd like for having completed the room. Right now we're only looking at some basic stuff like health refills, etc., and some other things that I'll get to later on, but that'll change as we move further down the design path. Once you've picked your reward, you're given a very important choice. You'll be presented with 3 portals, each one holding a different modifier, and a modifier will change the way that the next room works. This is very difficult for me to show off to you because we haven't actually made any yet, but I'll try and explain an example. One such modifier is fast forward, and what that'll do is make it so that in the next arena room, everything, which includes you, your bullets, the enemies, everything, absolutely everything, moves at 1.5 times the speed it normally does. With a little bit of video magic, I've demonstrated what that might look like by just speeding up the video clip because I'm a genius. Now, you're an intelligent person, so you can see how this will modify the basic gameplay loop. For the next room only, you're now doing what you just did, but with an additional 50% speed on top. This is, for some people, more challenging. For others, it's probably more fun. Either way, it will modify your experience and add a little sprinkle of variety to what could otherwise be a very repetitive gameplay loop. Like I said, you'll notice that when you clear a level, you get 3 portals, and the reason for this is that as you play through Smash and experience the various modifiers, there's going to be some that you start to prefer to others. Some of you will prefer running quicker, so you'll take the fast forward option when it's presented because you're better at it that way anyway. But for some of you, fast forward is going to be making the game significantly harder, so you might want to avoid it. And to do that, you'll have 2 different options instead. This will repeat itself for every single basic room in every level. Every room on completion will give you a choice, so that through experience and knowledge, you can tailor your current playthrough to your own strengths and weaknesses. That is just one of the roguelite elements that we're going to be adding in to make Smash a comprehensively brilliant modern twin-stick shooter experience. They're not all directly gameplay related either. These are things that are meant to add variety and choice, not just difficulty. One example is Mute, which literally just turns off all the music and sound effects for the next room. You might pick this one if the other 2 options are going to be a bit too hard for you, or if you play with the sound off anyway. These are things that are meant to add variety, not just challenge, so they won't all be edits to the difficulty of you clearing the room. That's not the point. There is a hell of a lot more for me to dive into with regards to the design choices we've got going on, but for now, at least you know the basic gameplay loop of Smash and how we got here, and you also know how to design one yourself. Figure out what you want the game to be by finding something that is fun and rewarding to do from moment to moment, and then run every single decision through that filter of whether or not it helps you to achieve your game's intention. That'll give you a primary gameplay loop that you can be satisfied with. Speaking of being satisfied, if you've been satisfied with this video, you should like this video so I know you liked the video, and subscribe for more videos like the video you just liked since you liked it. And I'll see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.